How true, for example, is that other old fable of the Sphinx, who sat by the wayside, propounding her riddle to the passengers, which if they could not answer, she destroyed them? Such a Sphinx is this life of ours, to all men and societies of men. Nature, like the Sphinx, is of womanly celestial loveliness and tenderness, the face and bosom of a goddess, but ending in claws and the body of a lioness. There is in her a celestial beauty, which means celestial order, pliancy to wisdom. But there is also a darkness, a ferocity, fatality, which are infernal. She is a goddess, but one not yet disimprisoned, one still half imprisoned, the inarticulate, lovely still encased in the inarticulate, chaotic. How true! And does she not propound her riddles to us? Of each man she asks daily, in mild voice, yet with a terrible significance, knowest thou the meaning of this day? What thou canst do today, wisely attempt to do. Nature, universe, destiny, existence, howsoever we name this grand unnameable fact in the midst of which we live and struggle, is as a heavenly bride and conquest to the wise and brave, to them who can discern her behests and do them, a destroying fiend to them who cannot. Answer her riddle, it is well with thee. Answer it not, pass on regarding it not, it will answer itself. The solution for thee is a thing of teeth and claws. Nature is a dumb lioness, deaf to thy pleadings, fiercely devouring. Thou art not now her victorious bridegroom, thou art her mangled victim, scattered on the precipices, as a slave found treacherous, recreant, ought to be and must. With nations it is as with individuals. Can they read the riddle of destiny? This English nation, will it get to know the meaning of its strange new today? Is there sense enough extant, discoverable anywhere or anyhow, in our united 27 million heads to discern the same? Valour enough in our 27 million hearts to dare and do the bidding thereof? It will be seen. The secret of gold Midas, which he with his long ears never could discover, was that he had offended the supreme powers, that he had parted company with the eternal inner facts of this universe, and followed the transient outer appearances thereof, and so was arrived here. Properly it is the secret of all unhappy men and unhappy nations. Had they known nature's right truth would have made them free. They have become enchanted, stagger spellbound, reeling on the brink of huge peril, because they were not wise enough. They have forgotten the right inner true, and taken it up with the outer sham true. They answer the Sphinx's question wrong. Foolish men cannot answer it aright. Foolish men mistake transitory semblance for eternal fact, and go astray more and more. Foolish men imagine that because judgment for an evil thing is delayed, there is no justice, but an accidental one, here below. Judgment for an evil thing is many times delayed, some day or two, some century or two, but it is sure as life, it is sure as death. In the centre of the world whirlwind, verily now as in the oldest days, dwells and speaks a God. The great soul of the world is just. O brother, can it be needful now, at this late epoch of experience, after 18 centuries of Christian preaching for one thing, to remind thee of such a fact, which all manner of Mahometans, old pagan Romans, Jews, Scythians, and heathen Greeks, and indeed more or less all men that God made, have managed at one time to see into? Nay, which thou thyself, till red tape strangled the inner life of thee, hadst once more some inkling of, that there is justice here below, and even at bottom, that there is nothing else but justice. Forget that, thou hast forgotten all. Success will never more attend thee. How can it now? Thou hast the whole universe against thee. No more success, mere sham success, for a day and days, rising even higher towards its Tarpeian rock. Alas, how, in thy soft-hung long-acre vehicle, of polished leather to the bodily eye, of red-tape philosophy, of expediencies, club-room moralities, parliamentary majorities to the mind's eye, thou beautifully rollest. But knowest thou whitherward? It is towards the road's end. Old use and wont, established methods, habitudes, once true and wise, man's noblest tendency, his perseverance, and man's ignoblest, his inertia. Whatsoever of noble and ignoble conservatism there is in men and nations, strongest always is the strongest men and nations. All this as a road to thee, paved smooth through the abyss, till all this end, till men's bitter necessities can endure thee no more, till nature's patience with thee is done, and there is no road or footing any farther, and the abyss yawns sheer. Parliament and courts of Westminster are venerable to me. How venerable! Grey with 1,000 years of honourable age. For 1,000 years and more, wisdom and faithful valour, struggling amid much folly and greedy baseness, not without most sad distortions in the struggle, have built them up, and they are as we see. For 1,000 years this English nation has found them useful or supportable. They have served this English nation's want, been a road to it through the abyss of time. They are venerable, they are great and strong, and yet it is good to remember always that they are not the venerablest, nor the greatest, nor the strongest. Acts of Parliament are venerable, but if they correspond not with the writing of the adamant tablet, what are they? Properly, their one element of venerableness, of strength or greatness, is, that they at all times correspond therewith as near as by human possibility they can. They are cherishing destruction in their bosom every hour that they continue otherwise. Alas, how many causes that can plead well for themselves in the courts of Westminster, and yet in the general court of the universe and free soul of man, have no word to utter. Honourable gentlemen may find this worth considering in times like ours. And truly, the din of triumphant law logic, and all shaking of horsehair wigs and learned sergeant gowns having comfortably ended, we shall do well to ask ourselves withal, what says that high and highest court to the verdict? For it is the court of courts, that same, where the universal soul of fact and very truth sits president, and thitherward, more and more swiftly, with a really terrible increase of swiftness, all causes do in these days crowd for revisal, for confirmation, for modification, for reversal with costs. Dost thou know that court? Hast thou had any law practice there? What? Didst thou never enter? Never file any petition of redress, reclaimer, disclaimer, or demurrer, written as in thy heart's blood, for thine own behoof or another's, and silently await the issue? Thou knowest not such a court? Hast merely heard of it by a faint tradition as a thing that was or had been? Of thee, I think, we shall get little benefit. For the gowns of learned sergeants are good, parchment records, fixed forms, and poor terrestrial justice, with or without horsehair, what sane man will not reverence these? And yet, behold, the man is not sane but insane, who considers these alone as venerable. Oceans of horsehair, continents of parchment, and learned sergeant eloquence, were it continued till the learned tongue wore itself small in the indefatigable learned mouth, cannot make unjust just. The grand question still remains, was the judgment just? If unjust, it will not and cannot get harbour for itself, or continue to have footing in this universe, which was made by other than one unjust. Enforce it by never such statuting, 3 readings, royal assents, blow it to the 4 winds with all manner of quilted trumpeters and pursuivants, in the rear of them never so many gibbets and hangmen, it will not stand, it cannot stand. From all souls of men, from all ends of nature, from the throne of God above, there are voices bidding it, away, away. Does it take no warning? Does it stand, strong in its 3 readings, in its gibbets and artillery parks? The more woe is to it, the frightfuller woe. It will continue standing, for its day, for its year, for its century, doing evil all the while. But it has one enemy who is almighty. Dissolution, explosion, and the everlasting laws of nature incessantly advance towards it, and the deeper its rooting, more obstinate its continuing, the deeper also and huger will its ruin and overturn be. In this God's world, with its wild, whirling eddies and mad foam oceans, where men and nations perish as if without law, and judgment for an unjust thing is sternly delayed, dost thou think that there is therefore no justice? It is what the fool hath said in his heart. It is what the wise, in all times, were wise because they denied, and knew forever not to be. I tell thee, there is nothing else but justice. One strong thing I find here below, the just thing, the true thing. My friend, if thou hadst all the artillery of Woolwich trundling at thy back in support of an unjust thing, and infinite bonfires visibly waiting ahead of thee, to blaze centuries long for thy victory on behalf of it, I would advise thee to call halt, to fling down thy baton, and say, in God's name, no! Thy success? Poor devil, what will thy success amount to? If the thing is unjust, thou hast not succeeded. No, not though bonfires blazed from north to south, and bells rang, and editors wrote leading articles, and the just thing lay trampled out of sight, to all mortal eyes an abolished and annihilated thing. Success? In few years thou wilt be dead and dark, all coldless, eyeless, deaf. No blaze of bonfires, ding-dong of bells, or leading articles visible or audible to thee again at all forever. What kind of success is that? It is true, all goes by approximation in this world. With any not insupportable approximation, we must be patient. There is a noble conservatism, as well as an ignoble. Would to heaven, for the sake of conservatism itself, the noble alone were left, and the ignoble, by some kind severe hand, were ruthlessly lopped away, forbidden evermore to skew itself. For it is the right and noble alone that will have victory in this struggle. The rest is wholly an obstruction, a postponement and fearful imperilment of the victory. Towards an eternal centre of right and nobleness, and of that only, is all this confusion tending. We already know whither it is all tending. What will have victory? What will have none? The heaviest will reach the centre. The heaviest, sinking through complex fluctuating media and vortices, has its deflections, its obstructions, nay, at times its resiliences, its reboundings, whereupon some blockhead shall be heard jubilating, see, your heaviest ascends. But at all moments it is moving centreward, fast as is convenient for it. Sinking, sinking, and by laws older than the world, old as the Maker's first plan of the world, it has to arrive there. Await the issue. In all battles, if you await the issue, each fighter has prospered according to his right. His right and his might, at the close of the account, were one and the same. He has fought with all his might, and in exact proportion to all his right he has prevailed. His very death is no victory over him. He dies indeed, but his work lives, very truly lives. A heroic Wallace, quartered on the scaffold, cannot hinder that his Scotland become, one day, a part of England, but he does hinder that it become, on tyrannous unfair terms, a part of it. Commands still, as with a god's voice, from his old Valhalla and Temple of the Brave, that there be a just real union, as of brother and brother, not a false and merely semblant one, as of slave and master. If the union with England be in fact one of Scotland's chief blessings, we thank Wallace with all that it was not the chief curse. Scotland is not Ireland. No, because brave men rose there, and said, behold, ye must not tread us down like slaves, and ye shall not, and cannot. Fight on, thou brave true heart, and falter not, through dark fortune and through bright. The cause thou fightest for, so far as it is true, no farther, yet precisely so far, is very sure of victory. The falsehood alone of it will be conquered, will be abolished, as it ought to be. But the truth of it is part of nature's own laws, cooperates with the world's eternal tendencies, and cannot be conquered. The dust of controversy, what is it but the falsehood flying off from all manner of conflicting true forces, and making such a loud dust whirlwind, that so the truths alone may remain, and embrace brother-like in some true resulting force? It is ever so. Savage fighting heptarchies, their fighting is an ascertainment who has the right to rule over whom, that out of such waste bickering Saxondom a peacefully cooperating England may arise. Seek through this universe, if with other than owl's eyes thou wilt find nothing nourished there, nothing kept in life, but what has right to nourishment and life. The rest, look at it with other than owl's eyes, is not living, is all dying, all as good as dead. Justice was ordained from the foundations of the world, and will last with the world and longer. From which I infer that the inner sphere of fact, in this present England as elsewhere, differs infinitely from the outer sphere and spheres of semblance. That the temporary, here as elsewhere, is too apt to carry it over the eternal. That he who dwells in the temporary semblances, and does not penetrate into the eternal substance, will not answer the sphinx riddle of today, or of any day. For the substance alone is substantial. That is the law of fact. If you discover not that, fact, who already knows it, will let you also know it by and by. What is justice? That, on the whole, is the question of the Sphinx to us. The law of fact is that justice must and will be done. The sooner the better, for the time grows stringent, frightfully pressing. What is justice? Ask many, to whom cruel fact alone will be able to prove responsive. It is like jesting Pilate asking, what is truth? Jesting Pilate had not the smallest chance to ascertain what was truth. He could not have known it, had a God shown it to him. Thick serene opacity, thicker than amaurosis, veiled those smiling eyes of his to the truth. The inner retina of them was gone paralytic, dead. He looked at truth, and discerned her not, there where she stood. What is justice? The clothed embodied justice that sits in Westminster Hall, with penalties, parchments, tipstaves, is very visible. But the unembodied justice, whereof that other is either an emblem, or else is a fearful indescribability, is not so visible. For the unembodied justice is of heaven, a spirit, a divinity of heaven, invisible to all but the noble and pure of soul. The impure ignoble gaze with eyes, and she is not there. They will prove it to you by logic, by endless Hansard debatings, by bursts of parliamentary eloquence. it is not consolatory to behold. For properly, as many men as there are in a nation who can withal see heaven's invisible justice, and know it to be on earth also omnipotent, so many men are there who stand between a nation and perdition. So many, and no more. Heavy laden England, how many hast thou in this hour? The supreme power sends new and ever new, all born at least with hearts of flesh and not of stone. And heavy misery itself, once heavy enough, will prove didactic.